Okay, the Maamar Vayabemo, you talk of the Rebbe in Chelik Vav. We're up to Eis Hey on page Vav in these for Okay. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that the Alter Rebbe explains that after he speaks about the concept of Shofar Gadol, that the Shofar awakens people. This is the close people, the far people. So then he starts explaining Zayim Tchilas Masecha, and he says why we say Zayim Tchilas Masecha, because the whole inyan is Avedas Ha'adam. So then the Rebbe asks, if so, the question is even stronger. If the whole inyan is Avedas Ha'adam, so why is Lasud Lavi you talk about Shofar Gadol without Avedah? And he says, because mitzvahs ain't a betelis Lasud Lavi, there'll still be Avedah Lasud Lavi. So again, the question is, why is it Aveda or not Aveda? It has to be a Shofar's Aveda, Zayim Tchilas Masecha, and yet you talk about the whole, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so he says now in Hey, V'yuven Zalpi Amavur B'Drush Abmur Marash. The Rebbe Marash explains, Zeh Shefar Tzidei Echad Kotze, Tzidei Hasheni Rochav, that the Shofar is narrow on one side and wide on the opposite side. He says, why is it like that? Why did they wish to make it like that? Because it says, we have to call out Hashem min ameitza, from the narrow, meaning from affliction, from being oppressed, whatever. And then Hashem answers us with broad, so to speak. In fact, Allah we mentioned, if somebody has a big mouth and they blow from the wide side of the shofar, I don't know if it's possible. So then you're not Yetzer. Because the pasuk says min hameitzer, it has to be dafka from the narrow side of the shofar. The kamei shakal ha-shofar, just like the shofar. Aidei sheyetzer min hameitzer mitzad mitzay hakotzer. Just like the voice comes from the narrow side, Aidei ze dafka hu b'merchav is pashal sidoy harochav. Dafka through this, does it come to the harchava, the white side of the shofar? And he says, "Kameikinu beruchni." So it is in beruchni is sheidei hatzaka min hameitzer v'deichik, screaming out to Hashem from being afflicted. Min hameitzer karasi yudke, anon al yidei zedavka anoni b'mercha yudke. Davka, in other words, davka screaming from bittul min hameitzer. Then you have the Hisrachvus, the wide open Giluyim from Hashem. And the Marash explains that this is what the Gemara says, that Kol and Shana Sharash B'tchilasim is Hasheres B'seif. Any year, it starts off, Rosh means not Rosh, a wicked. Rosh Rishon Hey means poor, oppressed, so then it becomes harchav at the end of the year, meaning the Rosh b'tchilasa. What does it mean, Rosh b'tchilasa? She'Yisrael eisinatim Rosh b'Rosh Hashanah, that the Eden make themselves poor, spiritually poor. That means they're lacking. Not they think they're rich, they have everything. In Ruchnis, that means they're mamish lacking, they don't have anything. And he says, that they make themselves poor on Rosh Hashanah to ask Hashem, like it says Tachnunim Yedaber Rosh. The pasuk says Tachnunim is spoken by a Rosh, by a poor man. In fact, in Allah it says a Chazan in Rosh Hashanah should not have panos and not have a house to worry about, because then he really means it. It's the level of Rosh B'tchilas. Yakriya min hameitzer. That's the kriya from Meitzar. By days a misasheres. It becomes anoni b'merchav. Then it becomes the hispashtus, the srachvus of Elokus. K'mavor b'mayman now shalmed amerash. The mile of tfilas oni al tfilas osher. The Medrash says like this: until him you have tfilah oni, right, and then you have tfilah l'meisha. The Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu was an Ashir from the leftover Luchis. So it explains in the Medrash, and Chassidus says a lot on it. There's Tefillah La'ani and Tefillah L'Moshe.
Shrei Aruchot, the physical part,
What?
the physical part of Shrei Aruchot, he enriched himself by selling it?
No, when he carved the luchis,
Okay.
so you have a big piece of sapir,
The leftover.
and the leftovers. So if it wouldn't be Moshe Rabbeinu, the luchis would be this size. Because everybody take all of it. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't into... Okay. Yeshleimar, and he explains over there's a mile of Tfilas Ani over Tfilas Osher. And he explains, Shatmaila b'Tfilas Ani b'Shnei Inyanim. There's a mile of Tfilah Ani is two advantages over Tfilah L'Osher. What are the advantages? Number one, by Tfilah Atzma, the Tfilah itself is a different Tfilah. Why? Keteris Abal Shem Tov and the Pasuk. Tfilah La'ani Kiyatev, the Tfilah La'ani, when he'll do the Atifa, when he'll put on his talis, the lift, they have before Hashem, he'll pour out his crying. Right? So Tfilah Sa'ani, what is it? Tfilah Ani, Lifnei Hashem Yishpech Sichei. He reaches a level of Lifnei Hashem. The tefillah itself is the tefillah that he reaches a level of Lifnei Hashem, and also tefillahs Ani miskabelas Yosef, and also that the tefillah of an Ani Hashem accepts quicker. V'eid inyan, and another inyan is shekam ataynu da'adam me'ashpa shenimshach le'adei tefillasei, when somebody gets the tefillah answered. Who appreciates the tefillah more? The poor man who has nothing and he gets something appreciates it much more than the rich man who has everything and he gets a little bit more. The appreciation is more. So the tefillah is different. This reaches lifnei havai because the bittul of the ani reaches the highest of levels. And secondly, ataynik shanu taynik gadol Yosef, like the Torah of the Rabbi Magid, which was brought before in the Maamar. So based on this, that the Rebbe Marash explains this Tefillah La'ani, the Shofar, Rosh B'Tchilas, B'Sasheres B'Sefer, you can explain the Sharchas he talk about Shofar Gadol or Rosh Hashanah. Because the Rebbe explains, Shofar Gadol, before the Rebbe explained, is still connected to Shofar Rosh Hashanah. Because the whole way you learn out that opinion that says Tishrei Hasidin Lihigoel is because we learn now Shofar from Tishrei. No, the Shofar, he learns that here it says Shofar, here it says Shofar. So therefore, the Mashiach's coming, Shofar Gadol is going to be blown in Tishrei. Okay? But he says, it's still connected to Shofar. The Rebbe asked before, Shofar is the Avodah. And Yitaka, Shofar Gadol is no Avodah. How do you reconcile these two things? So he says, Kizeh Shala'asad Lavi Yitaka B'Shofar Gadol. This that La'asad Lavi will be the Yitaka B'Shofar Gadol. B'Chdei La'er Sa'evdim V'Nidachim. To awaken the Evdim and Nidachim, Ki Ha'evdim V'Nidachim Ein B'Talchas HaMeitzar. Because the Evdim and Nidachim are on the ultimate level of Meitzar. They might not even be aware of it. But the fact is, you know, it's like there's a Gemara that says, Sheita Asel L'Rachem Olav. It's forbidden to have Shofar on a mentally, you're not to say retarded today, I was told. The word retarded, you're not allowed to say. But the Sheita is somebody who's mentally disabled. Let's leave it at that. So it says, there's a Chassidish... What?
I'm not totally disabled, I'm weak in some faculties.
Why? Who says we only talk about you?
Mentally challenged.
Anyway, so it says, there's a Chassidish explanation, Shaita, a person who's a Shaita, also you're bound l'rachem olav. Not that it's forbidden. Also means you're bound to... He says, so the fact that Evdim Nidach are betachas HaMeitzar, and the worst level is somebody who thinks they're rich and they're poor. That's the Ruchnis I'm talking about. That itself brings out the Tkiyah of Shofar Gadol from steam and the whole steam in Tachas HaMercha. In other words, the Rebbe says like this. Based on the Rebbe Marash's explanation, that Dafka min HaMeitzar causes Merchav. Dafka the level that they're Eivdim and Nidachim Tachas HaMeitzar. The whole inyan of Shofar is that it's Anani by Merchav Yudkei, it brings out the Tachas HaMerchav. And he says, V'zo shaychas di taka b'Shofar Gadol Rosh Hashanah of Teko b'Chay the Shofar ki inyan Rosh Hashanah. What's the whole inyan of Rosh Hashanah? Rosh b'tchilasa mereishes Hashanah, reishes chasa, which is the level of Rosh, he misasheret becomes the broadness. In other words, the ultimate merchav comes from the ultimate meitzar. The ultimate merchav is a level that Aveda really can't reach. The ultimate merchav is that Aveda can't reach. Right? But what awakens the ultimate merchav is the ultimate meitzar. And I'm going to continue. What?
David HaMelech was a melech, so he was an usher. So
David HaMelech says Tfilah La'ani.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, but he was a melech. So it wasn't about...
Shama nafshi, he said Chassid Ani, and he says Ki Ani. Kani Bevyan Aneich.
I'm saying he was not, so what was he referring to? Because he was...
David HaMelech was the level of Ani, because David HaMelech is the level of Malchus. And Malchus less from a Gemar Klum. So David HaMelech personified the level of Bittul and the level of Malchus. That's what he said, Ki Ani Bevyan Ani.
Can you expound on how ultimate the Meitzah fosters Merchav?
Could be because the more bottled somebody is to Hashem, the closer in essence they are to Hashem. Because Hashem is Einaid Mulvadei. Only
Merchav is
expansion of revelations of godliness. A person who's full of himself,
Who's what?
full of themselves, there is no room for God. The Gemara says, a person has gaiva ein anibo hu yochelim lador.
I see Meitzah when you
Meitza doesn't mean you're oppressed, that you go around depressed. Okay? Mina meitza means when a person feels humbled that they have nothing, ani, okay, evyain, there's a lot of different, there's Rosh in poor poverty, there's Rosh, there's ani, there's evyain, there's a lot of, evyain is the lowest, because ta'iv l'chol davar, he wants whatever you give me, that is great, because he doesn't have anything. So 1 second, so minameita means when a person mamish feels that they are nothing, that bittul is the greatest keli for Elokus to be revealed with it.
financially or?
No, we're talking here spiritually. What?
One can be wealthy financially, but
One could be really financially wealthy and is ultimately poor. There's a Gemara that says in the Dardim, Ein ani ele bedas. Ve'ein osher ele bedas. Ani doesn't mean you have a lot, osher doesn't mean you have a lot of money. Osher, osher semerach b'chalke, the Mishnah says. Semerach b'chalke means you're content with what you have. Yeah. Why is the Shofar called Pashut? Because the Pshitas of the Jew reaches the Pshitas, Pashut the Tachs of Pshitas of the English. And then that's why it's like that in physical, but in Ruchnius it's like that. Yeshleimar. And now the Rebbe says, "Da'idei Tkiya b'Shofar, b'Shofar Gadol." This Tkiya in the Shofar Gadol Eira Evdem Beretz Asher, Vanidochem Beretz Mitzrayim. By doing that you're awakening these lost people. Nase Ilui, Gam Beretz Asher Beretz Mitzrayim. Then the land of Asher, the land of Mitzrayim, which represents Klipa, evil, also becomes elevated. Why? The reason why Hashem put the Eden in Golus to begin with, that they should be even lost and pushed away, is why does Hashem put a Jew in Golus? By through the made the suffering of Golus, the oppression spiritually. Golus becomes Eidim and Nidachim, Yis'er of a Yom Shecha Shofar Gadol, creates the Shofar Gadol, Shayidei Zeh Yisalu Yisrael. Through this, that the Eden become elevated, the Madreg and Nailas Yosef, to a greater level from the level they were before Golus. Like the Rebbe explained in the other Maamar, yeah, true, but the Rebbe explained the other Maamar that because the whole purpose of creation was because Yidden, so when the Yidden in the Midbar and the Sada go to, the king awakens within them the essence of the Jew, that causes the Midbar and the Sada to be elevated.
Enlightenment occurs when somebody goes from, let's say, Netzah, experiences going through the Netzah to the Shofar, but these experiences transcended multi-generations. So people who were in destitution, they never experienced the redemption. And those who experienced redemption never
in the personal life, every so often somebody gets a merchav.
Yeah, but we are talking about the whole national...
I know, we're talking the ultimate level.
Many generations.
But if, in other words, or to say it in a different language, okay? Same concept in a different language. The Gemara says, why did Hashem put the Eden in Golus? Gemara says that there should be more converts. You know, if the Jews are in America, you get a lot of converts. So the older Mepharshim asked, the whole Jews are anti-converts. I mean, we try to push them away. What do you mean? I mean, after they, yeah, but Chatchila, we push them away. We're not there to proselytize. We're not there to... So Chassidus explains, Taste of Alei Gainim doesn't mean people. It means the sparks of Kedusha that are in Asher and Mitzrayim. They're using these words. Yeah? There's like it says, that when other magicians sinned, a lot of the neshamas of Jews ended up amongst the Goyim. And these are the sparks of Kedusha. So in a spiritual sense, there's a lot of sparks of Kedusha that are in America and Golus, Asher, Mitzrayim, wherever it is. So if all the Eden would be in Eretz Yisrael, they wouldn't be able to elevate those sparks. So again, so in other words, by a Jew being in Golus, they elevate the worlds of Klippa to Kedusha.
But we use historically, we have lost a lot more than
I understand. But he's talking in a spiritual sense. L'chein, sheyitak b'shofar gadol, when it will be eventually blowing the shofar gadol, v'tush l'makavana sheb'shvila nivra eretz Asher v'eretz Mitzrayim. And then this is the purpose of why Asher and Mitzrayim were created. Why did they wish to create? They should have created only Eretz Yisrael. Did he create all these? Huh?
No, without no meaning.
Are you kidding me? Kill each other. Why did they wish to make? Hashem could have made. I mean, of course, he could have done whatever he wants. If the purpose of the world is for Yidden and Torah, he should have created Eretz Yisrael. And Yidden and Torah, what does he need everybody else for?
We wouldn't feel so unique.
What does he need everybody else for? Well, all these other countries. Eretz Yisrael is a tiny little piece of land. So because the whole purpose is to elevate the klipa dira b'tachteinim. If it would be only Eretz Yisrael, you wouldn't have dira b'tachteinim. There's no tachteinim. It's all kedusha. So the Yidden, by being in a country through Meitzar, so they elevate that country also. And now, so one Inyan, the Rebbe says, because a big focus in the Maamar was, how could Shofar Gadol be blowing by itself if the whole Aveda of a Shofar is Aveda? Right? So the Rebbe answered now that through the Nidachim, through the Meitzar, That's how you reach the level of Yitaka. In other words, the Meitzah is not really avoid of Torah mitzvahs. Meitzah is the level of Bittul. Through the level of Bittul, they reach the level of Yitaka. Now the Rebbe explains another inyan to add. What?
Why should it be like that? Why should you be under so much pressure to be close to Hashem?
Because then you mean it.
He's my deputy.
Yeah, I know. Because then you mean it. The whole inyan of Torah mitzvahs.
Because you're in fear of being.
Okay. There's emes and sheker. Okay. In a higher level, a person could be keeping Torah mitzvahs completely. But it's not them, it's all show.
Facade.
Yeah, it's a facade. They might learn and daven and do all these holy things. Yeah? But it's all, in reality, it's sheker. That's why the Baal Shem Tov loved the simple Jews. He loved everybody, but especially the simple Jews, because it said they were real, they meant it. There's pshitas, the pnimius. There wasn't big seichel of learning and avodah, you know what I mean? But if somebody internalizes something a little bit to make it emes, that's what it's all about. You know the story, a guy once came to a Rebbe's door. He said, Rebbe, teach me emes. And then he says, and this that I'm asking emes, it should also be with emes. And this that I'm asking, until finally the guy fainted. So his Rebbe said, that's emes. Now you meant it. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
The guy kept asking.
And finally he fainted. So he said, that's emes. When it's you,
Penetrates.
But why does
or in another way of saying it, the true test of a religious Jew, is when he's in a place where there's no way in the world anybody could see him. Sometimes you go away, maybe somebody you know will bump into you and then they'll see you, whatever, you know? China, yeah. But a real religious Jew means he'll be in a place where it's impossible to be caught. No satellites and nothing, you know? And he's still as frum as he was when everybody's looking. That's a real religious Jew. Because there's no show. There's no show. He's doing it because he wants.
the question is why persecution brings out the real Jew? Why pressure brings it out?
Why is it like that in Gashmias? Because in Ruchnias, Bittul brings Kedusha. Persecution, right, or suffering, suppression, these things bring out that there's no me. And that is the keli to reveal Alokos.
There's fear. There's fear there.
Fear, or no, that's awe. There is Yiras Haynish. There's a concept in Allah called fear of punishment.
When somebody's under persecution, they have fear of the country, they might get killed.
Over there, that's Yiras Haynish. Nobody, any country you want there where they're still torturing people, yeah? Nobody's in awe of the government. They're fearing the government. So that's not that they really want it. It's not bittul. It's not bittul to the government. I don't want to get killed. That's yeshus. Okay. Okay. So he says, you can add another connection. There's two aspects of Rosh Hashanah. Number one, it's the day of B'riyas Adam Rishon. And also, the whole world is elevated through Rosh Hashanah. In other words, there is a level of Rosh Hashanah, which is Yom B'riyas Ha'adam, Avodah. And then there's a second aspect of Rosh Hashanah that we say, Zeh HaYom Tchilas Masecha, because the whole creation of the world is because of Avodah. So not only is it Avodah, but Avodah elevates all the other days of creation. So he says, well, Inyan, and the Inyan is Kamesha Kos V'Adma Rashab. He over there asks a question. And we need to understand Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah, which is the 6th day of creation. How could it be a remembrance of the first day if it's the 6th day? And he explains the will that Hashem has for creation is chitzeni yisaratz, in the external will. V'apnim yisaratz, and the real will of Hashem is be Yisrael. Let me explain this. There is what's in world. There is chitzeni yisaratz and there's pnim yisaratz. There's the external will and there's the real will. The simple gashmiistic mashal. I want to work. I have a routine to work. But why do I want to work? The work is not the end by itself. I need to make money. I want to make money. But in order to make money, I need to work. So therefore, I want to work. But the wanting to work is only chitzeni yisaras. It's the external will. The ultimate pnimius hakavana is to have money. And by the way, that's also not. Because why do I want money?
Buy toys.
To buy what?
Toys,
yeah. So, but because you can have like the story in Kamsa Moshe Basbaisis, that over there, that very rich lady, she had all the money in the world, she couldn't buy food. So the money wasn't the tachlis. Some people think money is batachlis, they're taking with the ground with them. But the reality is money is also a means to an end. Okay? By Yefrum Yid, the end is to serve Hashem. So in order to serve Hashem, the ultimate will, so he has a lot of chitzenius along the way. I want to work because I want to make money. I want to make money to buy things. I want to buy things because I want to. So there's pnimis haratzen and chitzenius haratzen. So the Rebbe, what the Rebbe is being for the Rebbe Rashab is Hashem wanted to create a world. But what's the kavana el yaina? What's the real will? Because b'shvil Yisrael, for Yid, for the Jews. He says chitzenius. The Rebbe Rashab explains chitzenius haratzen. Chitz in the Birsa Elam is chitzenius haratzen. Pnimis haratzen, meaning what was the purpose? B'shvil Yisrael, that's the pnimis haratzen. B'shnei enyanim elu. These two things, chitzenius haratzen and pnimis haratzen, where do they become revealed? Chafei Elul and Rosh Hashanah. Chafei Elul, Hashem created the world. He says, Chafei Elul shebei nivra ha'elam is chitzenius haratzen. Rosh Hashanah echa b'tishrei shebei nivra ha'adam atem kruyim adam, that's pnimis haratzen. Or in other places in Chassidus, the Rebbe is not talking about that here. In other places, we have like this. The Gemara says, Kol ha-neviim nisnabnu b'koi, u'meshe nisnaba b'zeh. All the Nevi'im, if you look throughout Tanakh, Koyam Ar Hashem. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu says, it's like, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Hashem, to be continued.
Yes, Shekor.
What's on? Call,